Level check 1, 2. Mine looks good. How about you?
Mine is great.
All right, your levels look good.
Good.
Welcome back.
Welcome back to you, Jake.
It's been a hot minute.
Been a while. You've had a lot going on.
There's been weddings and lots of things going on.
Yeah.
But wedding, that was like 4 hours of the last few weeks. But
we had to travel for it.
yeah, no, it's been one of the busiest seasons of my life, and I've been getting thumped on in the message boards for kind of a lack of communication from the parent company side. But yeah, it's been busy. It's 420's coming up too. Not to make this all about cannabis out of the gates, but that's the biggest industry holiday. So our partners are getting crushed with orders right now. We're trying to keep up with inventory and supplies. I mean, it's been fun.
I can't believe how many plates you have spinning at one time. I can barely remember them when you tell me.
Yeah.
And I'm moving just slower and slower each day.
That's all right. Things are getting close.
We're back.
We are back.
We're back at it.
So yeah, we've been working the guest list pretty heavily. I think that's going to be something you'll see more often in the show, is kind of trying to get to an every other rotation where we've got a guest on and we just do the two of us, and we trash talk that guest and do. No, but yeah, I'm excited about some of the people we have coming on. Couple folks with podcasts a lot bigger than ours, and
I've been able to kind of connect to a lot of people in the influencer industry, women that are doing different stuff than me that I really respect and am excited to learn from. So we'll have some fun guests on pretty soon.
Yeah, it'll be entertaining.
Yeah.
So this week we're focusing on relationships, how to put boundaries around them to kind of get the most out of them, as well as kind of building kind of our personal stock of kind of go-to folks that you use in your life, which we are kind of stealing from 7 Decisions.
By Andy Andrews, that book. I feel like about a year or so ago, we both used that to kind of take stock of just where we're at, but relationships was a huge part of that. And something that I've always really appreciated about you when I first met you was that you've had important, impactful friendships and mentorships and everything in your life. And that's always something that I've really valued in mine. So
yeah, I've always found myself like more comfortable with older people and even like elderly people. Like I would sit up with my great grandmother all the time and stay up till the wee hours in Central Oregon, and we could not have been more different in our lives. She never left a farm in her entire life, but I would just sit and be fascinated with her.
Yeah. Old people have the best stories.
They really do.
And they know stuff. They just know stuff.
They also don't know a lot of stuff.
Well, I think now, especially with the way
it's tough. The world, everything changes so fast, and we all have those great grandparents who are, you're always half afraid of what they're going to say. Try to keep some ground rules about areas you just don't even talk about. But no, but more specifically, I think the idea is born around the 7 Decisions and this idea that you have a personal board of directors. And that resonated with me because I deal with a board of directors and I've been on a couple of boards, and it's this interesting dynamic, and you sit down at a table and you kind of know who's specialty and skill set plays into whatever project you're trying to do, or you can bring in different advisory board members that have a unique skill set. And so that resonated with me, and forcing myself to look at like my friends,
personal relationships,
work relationships, family relationships, and take stock of all of those and determine like who is it that's helping me finish projects and more importantly, like move my life in the direction that I'm trying to go in, and how do we kind of highlight those people. And I think your board of directors changes, or at least your advisors change from time to time.
And I think each one has a different role, because where we want someone to push us professionally, it's also important to have people that tell you the truth and can be very honest with you. And say, hey, I don't think you're being your best self right now. Like, kind of what's going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it seems kind of mean at first when I first started the exercise, because you like take stock of who's in your life and kind of where they fit. And as you get older, as your life changes, so do your priorities. And so it did feel kind of like a mean exercise at first, but one that I value so much because I was able to make room for the people in my life that I felt like I needed to.
Well, I don't think it's about, didn't feel to me like about like cutting anyone out. It's just having a more honest and clear understanding of like what our relationship boundaries are and where we help each other. And so like by not depending on someone who doesn't have the time or effort to be like that person in my life, like it was a great exercise of recognizing who you go to in certain scenarios. And it doesn't mean you don't talk to other friends. Where I think it's the hardest is once you take stock of those folks is putting boundaries around the people that not necessarily that weren't in your board of directors, but for me, most important, like family. And it was a reevaluation of, who's contributing, who understands, who's actively trying to participate with me, who am I letting down on my end, and putting all of those in perspective and realizing that that's perfectly fine that you don't have your key family members in your board of directors for a million different reasons.
Well, I think a lot of times, even as adults or friends that I talk to, like we get stuck in they're my blank, so I have to blank. And it's
I hate that.
Yeah. But it's affecting you and your life. Like that's not, past the age of 21. I mean, I'm a huge believer, respecting your family members, blah, blah, blah. But there comes a point when you have to recognize when it's someone else's problem and when it's affecting your personal life. So that's just been something where I've had to tell friends like, hey, you've talked about this last time that we were together and you still seem really angry about it. And you're allowing that person to control your emotions around this. Like, why are you doing that? You got to let go.
But it's also not something, I think part of it is like taking the steps to realize like, what do I want to do, and setting your own goals first and then figuring out, because that's one thing is if you're somebody who changes your mind all the time, or you're all about fitness one week and people are trying to help you and be supportive in that. And then a couple weeks later, somebody makes mention of whether or not you should, I thought you weren't eating that kind of stuff. And now they're the asshole because you're not on your fitness kick anymore. And if you're constantly changing, I think it's really hard for your board of directors to give you advice. It'd be like sitting at a boardroom and saying, we're going to launch these 3 products tomorrow. And then 15 minutes later, you're saying, we've dropped those last 3, and like, if you're always moving the target around, I don't even think people can help you. So it really does kind of start with your relationship with yourself. And I have a thing that I've always done, which is when I'm brushing my teeth at night, like I look at myself and I just ask a couple of questions, say, how do you feel about the day? Did you do anything that you're proud of? Did you do anything you're not proud of? And that's just this time when like, you're going to spend 2.5, 3 minutes sitting there staring in the mirror while you're brushing your teeth. Like I use that time to just take stock on the day. And that's kind of like what you do in the morning when you start with coffee. And almost religiously, she lays out all these books and has her pens and a coffee's there.
My gratitude, my prayers, and my to-do, like set my intentions for the day and for the week. It's getting harder to get those done nowadays, but but I think it's some mental attitude and kind of being intentional with your thoughts, and especially with your relationships, has something that for me the last year has kind of totally changed my approach to productivity, to what I want in life. And I was like, oh, this is way easier as opposed to me waiting for something to happen. I'm like, what do I want to get out of this? What do I want to accomplish? What kind of friend do I want to be? When is it important to push something aside and be there for somebody? And kind of evaluating all of that has kind of been a game changer for me, and evaluating just those relationships and how much time and effort you give them. Yeah.
So I guess what's a piece of advice from either from the 7 Decisions book or your own experience of doing it? Like what's something that you either wish you would have done earlier or still haven't implemented? Because I'm asking you.
Because you have an answer already?
I have a little bit of an answer, yeah.
You answer first.
I think actually finishing the exercise, actually picking the 5 to 6 people that really do it. Because what I'll do is say, oh, those 3 people, yes, that. And when I'm on a specific project, I can see them and envision them, and I know to reach out to them if I want advice on something or if I'm feeling a little bit of a roadblock. But it's not having the other 4 established. I don't have a full toolbox when I go into it, and I think I partly because I've spent so much time and energy and effort on like the work stuff where I do know the board of directors and I do know who those people are, but it's on the personal side, and it's with like hobbies and and things like that, where having that group kind of rounded out and knowing who's like in my toolkit is something that I need to do. And every time I get close, I'm like, yep, kind of rounded out what I'm doing for this. And I don't think about those other 2 or 3 slots.
Well, and I see that in you, especially now with where the company is and where you want it to go. I understand this is like more of it's a place you're not going to be in forever, but I feel like you're really good at prioritizing your immediate family over work, but every other minute you're like, because you love it and you want to be working.
Yeah.
But I'm like, hey, what about this side of you? And what about addressing kind of more?
But that's kind of what this is.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, this is why it's a good exercise for us. I don't think you and I have a problem like connecting and staying in touch. I think there are times where, you're like, you're on like hour 17 today. Like,
well, and even with like fitness is so funny to me, because that's where we're so different, where you'll work your ass off on a project and like push your body to extreme for 3 days in a row and then not do anything
months.
Where I'm like, I'll go push it in the gym, but I don't want to like garden and carry things.
Yeah.
You're like, what? Anyways, we could just go back and forth on our weaknesses a lot, but that's something that I see in you, where you don't necessarily prioritize things even like your personal health or
like eating.
Yeah. Eating at all.
Yeah.
You'll just work and not eat. And I'm like, hey, maybe you wouldn't be as upset about this thing if you maybe had breakfast or lunch. Like, let's talk about addressing those immediate needs. But
I think where people have probably the hardest time, and I'm not talking about anyone specifically, but it is in relationships, like young relationships. It is really, really hard to stay in contact with your quote unquote board of directors or the people that make you the happiest. Like, of course, in a new relationship, you're going to get a lot of their attention. It's kind of peeling back from that and keeping, pieces of yourself. And I don't know. I always get nervous when I see someone like either complaining a lot about their significant other on social media or praising the hell out of their significant other, where it's like, this is not about that other person. This is your insecurities, like your need to show the world something. I don't know what it is. And I'm not saying like, obviously on your anniversary, like you go on a trip,
right.
It's a beautiful
but
sunset.
It's the couples that every day, like, my love. And it seems very like trying to prove something,
or if you don't see the other person ever doing that in return, it's almost like it's like dancing for us. Like you just freaking love it, and it makes me so nervous that I hate it. And it's like the more you do it, the less likely I want to go out there after you just did that whole scene. Like, I'm going to go out and just kind of 2-step shimmy side to side, and I'm like, how did?
Two-step.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's the high school relationship where you have to hold hands and sit, on each other to be like, look, we're dating. Do you see? We're dating.
I got friends that are like in their 40s that are still having this,
I always think if you have to proclaim it over and over again, there's a reason. Like, you could just be it. It's like the people that say, I'm very confident.
I don't necessarily think it's a problem with the relationship as much as it's just like something that person needs to address a little bit. And I think we're probably like taking it way too far. I'm not trying to like say that they're broken or there's issues with their relationship. It just seems like, I guess, calm down.
Yeah.
Calm down.
Are you talking to me? So to actually answer your question that you asked me.
About what you would do differently? Yeah.
I think... I don't know. I'm having a hard time with this one because I want to say professionally put more people in my life, but I think I was so focused on music before that I sought out a lot of music professionals that weren't necessarily in my genre or like couldn't really do anything.
That word professional very loosely.
Yeah, yeah. And so I think I wasn't as focused on specifically where I want to go.
But I think that's what the exercise forces you to do is go, oh, wait a minute. I always thought this person had it so together.
Yep.
And if you're being selective about who you're going to use as a resource, and this is like putting your life on an island and looking at your goals and saying, what is the person that helps me get to this and to this? And like I said before, it doesn't mean anyone's better or worse. But when you identify like, oh, that was the person I was relying on to help me do my artwork for my album covers. Wow, they're terrible.
Well, and I wanted this really generic thing, and I didn't. It's like listening to Gary Vee and things like that, where he set. And when people ask me for help now with their music career, I was like, well, what do you want to do? Do you want to be an artist? Do you want to be a writer? Like, what are you doing right now? And they, like, when they're not specific, I don't know how to help them. So I feel like I was going around all these people being like, help me, help me, help me. And they're like, what are you doing? So I think taking responsibility, even though that was my biggest complaint, we've talked about this before on the podcast, but just not knowing what steps to take. But I think reevaluating that sooner and having really specific goals would help me identify the people that I needed to actually be asking for help. Now more baby stuff, mom stuff, parenting stuff, things that I didn't care to know about, 5-6 years ago. But I think you being on my board of directors has changed my perspective and helped me professionally a lot. And I think that's really important in romantic relationships to say, hey, is this someone that can inspire me, can help me achieve my dreams? Can I help them achieve theirs? Like, I never wanted the marriage to be boring or dull or feel like it was taking away from my life. And I feel like you came along and kind of merged into it so easily and made it better. And I know we both have had long friendships forever, but that's another type of relationship I think is so important to cultivate, especially as we get older. But seeing, okay, I have amazing friends in my life that I value. If I'm dating somebody, like what you were talking about, are they taking me out of that situation? Are they making this kind of separate life, or are they coming in and joining it? And it was when I realized, like, oh, it's more fun, it's better when Jake is here, that I was like, okay, I could get behind this. But I think even as we get older, it's necessary to continue to grow those friendships, because there are things that your significant other just can't give to you, and they shouldn't be your all and everything, But you're pretty close.
Well, that's nice.
Yeah, I just rambled about all, but I love talking about relationships, because I'm such a people person, and I really get a lot out of different types of relationships. That's why I still do love teaching, because I've had so many people that have made such a huge impact. I think that's why you want to go into coaching sometime soon-ish, and with all your free time.
Yeah, like 7 years.
Mm-hmm. But to be able to give back whatever knowledge and wisdom we're getting from other people I want a mentor and a mentee, to make it complete.
Well, you do an excellent job of staying in contact with your friends. Your whole group, like, you guys schedule stuff, and I'm lucky to work with a lot of mine or have them in close proximity to the businesses, so that is really helpful. And then over the years, a lot of them have either joined in on ancillary businesses or been around long enough, and now a lot of them are shareholders. So we've got this kind of accumulation of, like, my favorite people are just kind of built into my life at this point, which is, like exactly what I would want it to be. And even this podcast has opened up, friendships, and a lot of people have come out of the woodwork, and even significant others of, like, my old college roommates saying, man, it's so fun to get a peek into your life and, like, get to keep going down that track. And I think even if it was only those 20 people that were actively engaged, it's still it's a great resource to keep those relationships kind of thriving. And this whole process has been really, really cool. And this podcast is a result of the 7 decisions, and putting together that board of directors and kind of giving a platform where we can help people out.
And creating a community.
That's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Yeah. And I feel like that was a big goal, even for our wedding. Like, our main focus was, how do we celebrate the people that are in our community and thank them for being a part of our lives? Because those people are what makes our life so much more full. And I think as we get older and you have young kids, it gets harder and harder to prioritize those friendships and relationships and keep that community tight. But I think if you value it and you put the effort and intention into keeping that, it'll make ultimately your life, your kids' life, that much better. So moving forward, I know we still have a little bit of work to do on our end with building our full...
Like filling out the board of directors?
Filling out the board of directors. So what are some action steps that people can start with to kind of evaluate the people in their lives and try to get their own board of directors?
I started with, like, with the people that I was around the most and just ask myself what my expectations of them are, because that's as much of the problem as, it's not about somebody who can't fulfill the needs that you have and they aren't a good friend to you. I've said that a couple times, but it really comes down to what do you want from these people and what are you giving to them, and just framing in what your expectations are and what you have to give to the relationship and what your goals are. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like as soon as I started to do that, that's why 2 or 3 people would come into focus, because I'd be working on a certain goal set or objective over the next 6 months. And I could pin 2 or 3 people that fit right in. It's identifying the other people, but I start with the people that are around me the most. So I did it at work with kind of key personnel, and the things I was running into issues with, or why doesn't this get done when I put it on someone's desk? And it's like, obviously that's not their skill set. It's not a fireable offense. It's nothing. It's actually bad leadership on my part by not recognizing that that's not in their skill set. I mean, obviously that has limits.
Yeah.
But for me to be able to kind of focus on the goals and objectives that I have, a lot of it started at work, looking at the people that I was around a lot. Obviously you and Carter already, their spots are already sealed in there, but family is the hardest one. I mean, if I was going to give a piece of advice, like that's the one I think you need to be the harshest. Mm-hmm. It is not anything to do, it has nothing to do with love or respect. It's about literally asking yourself, like, is your dad the best fit for you? And when you really step back and look at it and go, wow, he's really pessimistic. He never, you can pick all these things out and say, that doesn't mean you love them any less, but is this really the person I should call and ask, right? It's
and be spending a majority of my time with.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so it's just putting framework around that and saying, wow, I have been over-investing my time in this particular person with this expectation. And the sadness or any disappointment that comes from not getting that is actually kind of your own fault. So like taking stock of what you're trying to do, taking stock of the people that are around you the most, I think is a great place to start. Obviously, yourself. Mm-hmm. That's the toothbrush at the end of the night, like evaluating things from the day before and what you're hoping to do the next day. I don't feel like an expert on this. Most of the topics we've touched on, I have some I almost feel like a commanding control of those areas. Mm-hmm. I think you're better at managing relationships and maintaining your relationships. I think you're softer on people, like your edges aren't, your angry isn't mm-hmm. over the top, and
you have higher expectations for people.
I get disappointed in people very quickly. I never I don't turn my back on them. I don't shift. In fact, I think I let it be my problem more than it should. But yeah, I definitely have high expectations. I want everybody to strive to do better and more and be more efficient on every level.
That brings me to my next point of what I think is important when thinking through evaluating your board of directors is like-mindedness. And I think that's been something that's been difficult for me to let go of people that maybe aren't as ambitious and they don't want to be. So why would I get frustrated with them for not wanting more when they're completely content with their life and understanding, okay, cool. They love that. That's where they want to live. Awesome. Great. Now, who are people that I value, ambition? I want to continue to grow and continue to push myself. Who are those people that are doing that more so than I am? And what can I learn from them? And how do I incorporate them into my life? And kind of letting go of those, why don't you want to? And
it's judgments and assumptions. It's a target that they are not even trying to throw a dart at, and you're wondering, well, you can't even hit this giant board here.
Yeah, I'm not you. I don't want to.
I don't even want to throw it. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been something that I've learned is, okay, I need to find, especially as I entered into the influencer realm and worked on social media, it's who are those people that I can learn from and like-minded goals. And I had to kind of search that out a little bit, which is why I'm grateful for social media and the community that's on there. Because when you do engage, you do meet a lot of people that are very like-minded and that want to connect and want to engage.
And I'm not trying to say that our goals are so lofty that no one can compare, but it does get harder the more you strive. If you're a bodybuilder and you set out to be, to win the Emerald Cup and get your pro card, like it's going to be very hard for your immediate circle to be able to fill your board of directors if that's your goal.
You're right.
And
you can't work out with the person that's going to bail on Tuesday morning because they're out too late.
But also you're doing such a specific, lofty, laser focused goal, that there aren't going to be that many people that you can lean on that are going to help you, at least in that particular field. So figuring out what rounds you out as a person. And I think for me, that happens professionally from the standpoint of like my expectation that lawyers would know certain things when these are changing regulations in a state that we're not even operating in.
Right.
So, Florida, for example, like me getting frustrated the other day with an attorney we were working with out of Florida, wanting to know why we don't have this specific contract put in place, or at least a draft, and it's like, you're operating outside of my professional experience. So I don't know who to call other than you.
Right.
So that's why it's not done. And that's why you're struggling with this, is because I really need you to do it. And I'll tell you legally whether or not it holds water.
Yeah.
And that's happened over and over, but from CPAs to lawyers, that happens across the board, and going, oh yeah, I'm trying to break new ground here. And I think that's one of the things that I think I'm a little sensitive to some of the folks, I'm getting screenshots of people on the message boards kind of trash talking things. And I think what's hard is having such a deep knowledge of the space, but also a lot of a very high risk threshold. So with like these other states that are coming on, I think there's a lot of folks who are just kind of wondering, well, why haven't they just done that? And they don't realize how difficult every single step of the space that I'm in is. And there aren't people to just pick up the phone. A new state adds medical, and you'd love to branch into that. There aren't very many professionals that actually know the rules yet, because most of them haven't been put in place.
Right.
So I think it's when you strive for something great and you're really pushing, more often than not, you're going to become the authority on that subject before too long, and that can feel a little bit lonely. So that's where turning. And I'm not saying like so great. It's just that I don't know anyone else that's done the things I'm doing. I don't know anyone that's doing the same like ratio of things that you're doing either. And I think our family looks at it and says, oh, that's neat. I see your videos you put together. Like, we have made hundreds of videos over the last couple of years and really, really worked at everything we're doing. That's on top of all of the professional stuff and the personal stuff we're doing. And so we have taken on a workload that's to try and build an empire. And it's my businesses and your businesses all kind of torpedoed into one big grand master plan. And it is very hard effing work.
And it's hard to explain.
Yeah. No, I'm having a hard time right now.
Yeah. And just like the elevator pitch is hard to explain. And I was meeting with some people I haven't seen in a while today and trying to explain to them what I'm doing. And it's, especially if you don't understand a lot of the social media realm and how powerful it is, it's really hard to explain to people.
It just seems like you like taking videos of yourself all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question. Who have you learned from the most professionally?
I have a couple people I'm not going to mention, but it's because it's partnerships that went sideways with big companies. I learned a lot about things that I think one of the things I've learned is in that moment years ago, being very angry at people for not getting things done as fast as I wanted them to, or deals not going the way that I wanted. And now being somewhat in their shoes and having some deals fall through and deal with people that I really liked and really hoped and still hope to have on the team. Learning that there are some things like everything takes longer, everything's a little harder, and when you're on kind of the smaller of the two exchanges, you expect like, we're ready, we're good to go. Why isn't this done? And I remember thinking like, they cannot be serious. They cannot be serious. They're not professional. This would be done a long time ago if they would give us their attention, not knowing they might have had 7,000 other things going on at the same time.
Right.
So I think for me is having the courage to say, the person I was last year, I'm embarrassed at what they didn't know, and I'm proud to know what I know today. But I also have the wherewithal to know that next year I'll be saying the same thing.
So it's you, is what your answer is.
Yeah, I'm honestly, I feel like that comes, man, that might be, maybe I'm super selfish.
No, I think it's what you've always told me, like nobody has the magic key. Nobody has the magic answer, especially when you're trying to do something that not a lot of people have done, especially in your industry, especially in your space. Like it hasn't been done.
But I think in life too, like I always turn it around back to me. It's like if I'm mad at somebody, well, what is my expectation and why am I so upset? Like they do not have the ability to make me that mad. The lady, I needed a lady to move up today in traffic. I gave her the gentle beep, not the full horn, just the meep, the quick one, and she flipped me off. And I thought, well, I'm not going to get upset about that because she doesn't care. and it's only going to affect me. So I literally look at every situation and figure out, what is my role in this, and how could I prevent it next time?
Well, and I
So I
think
do think
you get it goes back to your expectations of people. You get frustrated, like, I'm thinking this through. You get that frustrated with me. Like, why are you not thinking this through? I have thought 4 steps ahead. Like, what is the matter with you? So when other people we don't think that far ahead sometimes.
Well, and it just goes back to expectations and figuring out what people's strengths and weaknesses are, and being aware of those and setting your own expectations around them. But I mean, I've learned a ton of stuff from, I've had a chance to work with a lot of people over the last year, and Doug McDonald's somebody who we come from 2 totally separate worlds, and we care about totally separate things outside of the overlapping parts of our company. For those that are listening, Doug was the founder and the former CEO of the publicly traded company, and he's in his 70s, and he was a Royal Mounted Police officer and head of the Gaming Commission in Alberta, I believe. So he has a really, really staunch background in following the rules and enforcing the rules. And it's not that I don't, but I was in the cannabis industry, and we were operating in the gray for a long time.
You know who I think I've seen be a huge influence on you?
I'm nervous.
Is Peter McKinnon and Casey Neistat.
That's a good point.
Because if you, like, I know when you first started really digging into videography and photography, you do your thing. We're like, well, I have to be a professional at this in 5 seconds. And seeing how you've evolved and taken what they have taught you about those things, and then utilizing what makes them extremely successful in their space, and saying, what can I do to take elements of that into my business and into what we're doing?
When I saw the amount of power that they have in their message, in that I know there's a connection to him from listening to podcasts and watching the videos, that I know what he's about. And if you know what he's about, and he talks about a product or an adventure that he's going on, like, you just gravitate to it and you buy in, because you know generally what his likes and dislikes are, and what he puts out is an honest representation of him and Casey, of themselves all the time. And it's really hard to knock them. I mean, they have failures. They have things that don't work out for them, but they show it in real time. And it's this just really honest look at someone. I thought, man, if I could do that and I could connect with people in a wide audience, there are things I can talk about and establish myself as an authority on, that will lend themselves to the business practices. I don't think people realize the folks we're talking about over the course of a couple of years, they have more impressions than a Super Bowl commercial does. And they're not talking to a general audience. They're talking to a very specific audience. The folks that would listen to this podcast are very much fit into a demographic, or would be interested in the products and services that I know a lot about. Otherwise, I don't know why they're here. So being able to look at that, you're right. You hit on a serious hot button for me. Those are people that I don't know that have played a major role in how I market and brand the company, what I'm doing in my own personal life, and what I do for a hobby to keep myself from, jumping off a cliff when I get frustrated at the office.
Yeah. All right.
I don't know how much of that we can use, but
I think there's some good stuff in there.
Yeah. Typical soapbox from Jake. My call to action to anyone that's still listening to these ramblings is take 5 to 10 minutes, think about the 4 or 5 people you'd call if some emergency happened or something exciting happened to you. Who's the first person you call if you just got the job you wanted, or you landed a gig that you were hoping for, whatever it is. And think about who you'd call, and then think about their responses, and then kind of work through your people and ask yourself, like, is there somebody that I have access to that would be a perfect fit to help me not just celebrate in this, but now how do I prepare for it? And start thinking about those people, and grab a piece of paper and kind of map them out, and put yourself in the middle, and kind of create a few different scenarios, and start to work through, your little catalog that you have. And I think you'll be surprised at some of the names that surface up and end up in your board of directors. And I have some that I thought, they would never could, because they are wildly unreliable. But knowing that, I just put them in their category, and I use them as a resource for the things that make the most sense.
Don't add tremendous value to your life. It's just setting those expectations and knowing, okay, I don't go to this person for this specific thing. And that is just fine.
One of my favorite things about the podcast is knowing that I'm only talking about one person and there are 3 that went, that son of a bitch. I know he's talking about me. Anyway, so if hopefully there's something you can pull out of this.
I think there's lots of good nuggets in here. I think this is one of the most valuable things you can do, is evaluating your friendships, your relationships, the purpose you have in people's lives and the purpose that they have in yours. Something so small and intentional can make such a huge difference that I think it's a very valuable thing to touch on.
Well, let's hope so.
So we're booking out guests for the next couple episodes, and like you said before, we're going to kind of be hopping back and forth, but ultimately we want to have people on that are inspiring to us, and hopefully inspire you, and to check out their content and talk about everything that influences our lives. So thanks so much for listening, and we'll catch you guys next time.
Share, like, follow, do all the things. Spread the word a little bit.
Let us know if you have a guest you think would be awesome to have on the show.
Yep. All right, guys. We'll talk to you on the next one.
All right. Bye.
Bye.